Hello world, my name is Leo and today we are discussing the Lorelei and the Laser Eyes file. This is a puzzle adventure game that was published by Annapurna Interactive and developed by Simogo, who is probably most well known for their previous work, Sayonara Wild Hearts. Now, I have played a lot of puzzle games in my time. Games like Oberdin, Antichamber, Talos Principle, Witness, Tunic, Outer Wilds. I've played a lot of them, quite a few. And all of those are extremely good, well-made experiences in their own right. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes deserves to stand alongside all of them. Simply put, it is one of the most surreal, most artistic, and one of the smartest designed puzzle games that I've ever played. And if you plan on playing this yourself, if you even remotely want to see what I'm talking about, I would recommend you stop the video here, because this is one of those games where I would say it is better to go in blind. This is an experience that deserves to be experienced yourself. And while I do plan on covering things as spoiler-free as I can in this video, I just think going in, seeing and knowing nothing is better. But if you plan on sticking around, I do want to go into detail as to why I feel that way about this game through the aesthetics and presentation, the story and the setting, and the puzzles and the gameplay, because I do believe that all of them play into the smart design, like what I mean by this is a game that is smartly designed, the artistic nature of it, the themes relating to art, which I'll get into later, and yeah, it's just an amazing experience. And I want to start off with talking about the aesthetics and the presentation of Lorelei. So right away from the first screen, you will notice a few things. This game has a very striking visual style and presentation. This game primarily uses fixed camera angles, a la old school Resident Evil. This already gives the game a very distinct feel because you can't see around corners, and with some of the Dutch angles and with some of the placements of the camera, it actually makes you feel like you are being watched. It's very mysterious and a bit unsettling at times. And contributing to that is every screen, almost every screen, has a another image overlaid on top of it with the opacity super low, that's slightly shuddering or moving. So each screen, even when everything is standing still, the background still looks like it's moving, and that kind of contributes to the unsettling, surreal quality to the entire game. Something else you'll probably notice is the graphical art style and the color palette. So the graphical style is very similar to Sayonara Wild Hearts, where the character models all look pretty smooth, and the environmental models and the floors and stuff like that are all slightly polygonal. And I don't mean jagged, but each surface you can see polygons. It's made up of polygons, if that makes any sense, flat polygons. However, where Sayonara Wild Hearts was filled with color, because that game was a pop album that was designed to be beautiful and colorful, this game is mostly in black and white with only a single color ever present throughout the game: red. And red is used in a couple of different ways here. throughout the game you will see like red paint marking important things, or red underline, red ink underlining certain lines or phrases in documents. It is meant to guide you um, towards important information or important objects. However, red can also be used to signal danger coming, or that something bad has happened or someone's been hurt. So the fact that they use red as like your guide while also making it feel like something bad is going to happen, um it's very smart because it makes the player almost like feel like they're seeking out danger. Like red means that you have to go and interact with that object, but you don't necessarily know what's going to happen when you interact with that object. And it just contributes to like a genuinely unsettling atmosphere at times. There are also just some really nice touches of animation here and there. Like whenever you use an object, it actually shows your character opening her bag to get the object. Um, Whenever your character drinks coffee, there is a like drinking coffee animation. There's little touches here and there that I think add to the aesthetic of the game. And then on top of all of that, there is a reoccurring pattern throughout the game of the past, present, and the future colliding. And with the aesthetics, this is presented in a few ways. One is the text in the game. Whenever you interact with something, the screen cuts to black and the text on screen tells you what the object is, or sometimes what happens when you interact with it. This, to me, was very reminiscent of like a text-based adventure. Meanwhile, I already talked about the camera angles being reminiscent of Resident Evil. The opening of the bag and like interacting with different keys and stuff remind me a lot of a point and click. And there are some moments where you are presented with dialogue choices in the game that are presented almost as if they're part of a silent movie, which is important to the like story and setting of the game. So yeah, the past, present, and the future, these different eras of like text and like the black and white style with one color. It's all these different aesthetic choices that come from different eras or from slightly different mediums in the genre. And it all coalesces together into something that feels cohesive despite the ideas being slightly different throughout. Another place where past, present, and future feels prevalent is in the music, because a lot of the tracks feature both classical sounding instruments or vocals alongside synths and electronic instruments. The title track actually is a really good example of that, and I'll go ahead and play a little bit of that here. So, speaking of time and past, present, and future being a regular reoccurring theme in the game, let's go ahead and move on to talking about the story and, in particular, the setting. This game takes place at the Hotel Letztes Jahr, which is German for last year. So the hotel last year. It's a maze of hallways, little nooks and crannies that hold secrets of many kinds. and many rooms to explore. Coincidentally, or uncoincidentally, all of the rooms, or most of the rooms in the hotel, don't have traditional numbers. Instead, they are named after years, like room 1847, room 1963, and so on. Even more than that, though, with the theme of time, the hotel feels like a place that exists out of time, which contributes to the surreal atmosphere. Like, you can find phonographs throughout the hotel that you can play music on. There's a rotary phone that will come into play in a few puzzles. And in the same building, you are saving your progress on computers, and you can find video game systems of both the handheld and like console variety. So you have, again, these different eras, like the past, the present, and the future colliding. And while on paper or in concept, that could have sounded like disjointed, or could have made for a very like inconsistent layout, I guess, Simogo found a way to make it all feel cohesive. Nothing feels out of place, or should I say, everything feels out of place, but it all feels consistent and like it belongs together in this hotel that exists out of time or out of reality, or at least it feels like it does. And I won't spoil a whole lot of some of the other elements of the game, but there are other areas of the hotel that do contribute even more to the surreal nature and make it feel like the hotel exists within its own little world. For the story, it is purposely vague, especially at first. You are playing as the woman, and that's like, you will find clues throughout the game and like different texts that hint at who you are playing as, but the game itself never refers to you by name. Same with some of the other supporting characters. The main supporting character is just referred to as the man or him. And again, you can find clues and texts that imply, with different levels of implicit or explicitness, who this person is, but the game never actually refers to them by name. Another thing that you'll notice when meeting these characters is that you very rarely see their full faces. With the man in particular, whenever you enter dialogue with him, his character portrait or images are always shown with his back to you, or super zoomed in on the lower half of the face. It's almost like it's angles and like zooms that are meant to make you feel uncomfortable. It's actually things that can be seen in some like movies, like with horror, with the up close angles, like the uncomfortable close angles and the zooms, and not being able to see the face or the eyes of the character you're speaking to. As for what you're doing in the game in terms of the story, your goal is to find the truth. And in your main menu, there is a truth percentage that will go up depending on how many puzzles you've solved and how much information you've found. In order to find the truth, you do like solve puzzles and find information, but events can be presented out of order or by unreliable narrators, or in ways that make it feel surreal enough that you will be questioning what's real and what's not real throughout the course of the game. So again, just like with the aesthetics and the presentation, here in the setting and story, we have the motif of time and the past, present, and future colliding, and we have elements that make for a surreal, slightly unsettling experience. Um, I want to move on to the gameplay now, where even in here, some of these motifs and some of these themes are present as well. First of all, throughout the hotel, there are many different types of puzzles that you will be experiencing and solving throughout the course of the game. The primary puzzle is like combination lock or number puzzles, but besides that, there are memory puzzles, perception puzzles, finding the key puzzles, rearranging puzzles, mazes, there's trivia. There's a whole bunch of different ideas on display here. And again, while it could have felt disjointed or inconsistent on paper, Simogo does a brilliant job of making it feel like all of these ideas belong together in the same space and are cohesive. And I think in the gameplay and like the puzzles, that's where a lot of the different smart design decisions come into play. For example, there will be puzzles and information and even solutions that you will find early on that won't come into play until much later in the game. And what this does is it kind of gets the player thinking and remembering these specific details while also kind of cluing them in on the type of information that is going to be important throughout the course of the game. And there's even like early on when you're exploring the hotel for the first time, there are a couple of piles of books in a couple of rooms that have like information like number puzzles and Greek letters and cardinal directions and stuff like that that will become important at different points later on in the game. Some of the other puzzles will have the solution right next to them. And while that does sound gamey, admittedly, in this hotel and in this game, it felt natural. Like it does feel a little bit escape room-esque at times, but never once did I feel like anything didn't belong. So when there was a like combination lock with posters next to it indicating the solution, um, with just having to find additional information or change your perception on what was being presented to you in the posters or something like that. Like it felt normal for what this game was. And yeah, I will also say that there was never a point in this game where a puzzle solution felt obtuse or out of place. And actually, every puzzle kind of felt like they fed into one another. And the motif of past, present, and future colliding also reoccurs here in the gameplay as well. So a lot of the solutions to puzzles are either going to be dates or times, or are going to have to do with different dates or times or years or something like that. And because of this, and because each solution felt natural, I never actually had to look up a guide throughout this game either. Every puzzle felt like it led into the next cohesively. And don't get me wrong, this game is not easy. There will be times where you will need to look for specific things or look through documents for specific information. And some puzzles might stump you if you don't look at them a specific way or from a specific perspective or something like that. Or if you happen to miss a note. but it felt rewarding, and it felt just challenging enough without feeling too hard or too easy. Like, this hit, for me at least, this game hit a sweet spot when it came to, yeah, feeling challenging versus feeling natural and feeling rewarding, while making it so that I was able to progress at a regular pace without getting stuck too often. And to that end, in addition to like the different motifs in the puzzles, Simogo have put in here some explicit tools to be able to help you on your journey. From the very beginning of the game, you are encouraged to use pen and paper to take notes on different puzzles. And I actually found that element to be a lot of fun. I fully immersed myself into it and participated in it, and I ended up with like 4 or 5 pages of notes by the end, a whole bunch of mad scribbles with little tidbits of information and different solutions on each page. In addition to that, you have an introspection screen here where you can access your photographic memory, possessions, mental notes, and a timeline. So your character has a photographic memory, and that means that every document you find and every important site or image that you see is recorded here, and you can access it at any time if you ever need to review something. You can also see your current possessions in your purse, and if you select each piece, you will be given trivia on whatever object you have selected. You also have mental notes, which act as kind of your task log, and things will be crossed out as you complete certain tasks. And you have a timeline for different events that you encounter throughout the course of the game. And you also have a little bite-size gaming system, which is reminiscent of like a little Game Boy, and you can actually find games in the game to play on this bite-size system. It's a lot of fun. Also, regarding the puzzles, I just want to say really quick, there are some sequences and some puzzles in this game that I won't spoil, but they are excellent. Some of the best puzzle design and aesthetic design that I have seen in any puzzle game I've played. And this game constantly surprised me and blew me away with some of the creativity on display here. I'll just say that. Now, in terms of the gameplay when it comes to the controls, this is going to be the most polarizing feature for a lot of people. I've seen every Let's Player mention this. I've seen I've seen a lot of reviews talking about this, and it is definitely worth mentioning here. So in terms of the controls, it is very simple. You have your directions, which like your directional inputs, which are like the joystick or the arrow. But in terms of interactivity, this game is a one-button game. Every button you hit will do the exact same thing. If you are standing in front of an interactable item, hitting any button will interact with that item or take the appropriate contextual action. If you are not standing in front of anything, hitting any button will bring you to the introspection screen to access your photographic memory and possessions and stuff like that. Most controversially, I guess, because of this, there is no dedicated back button. So in order to navigate out of menus, you actually need to navigate up to the X in each menu and click on it in order to get out. Otherwise, you will just be flipping back and forth between the document and the menu. This does take some getting used to. Although, in my opinion, it does feel authentic. I do believe this is an intentional design choice because the video game consoles, like the handheld one and the console that you find in the game, also have one button controllers. And I think it's supposed to be like kind of reminiscent of the like NES, Atari style of controls, like the old school controls. And while I can appreciate that, I will acknowledge that it is unintuitive. However, it did not bother it didn't bother me all that much. I would definitely would not say it ruined the experience for me at all. The only time when I ever felt like slightly bothered by it later in the game was when I was like trying to access maps, because this, like I said, this hotel is a maze, and I constantly had to reference the map to figure out where things were, and going in and out of the menus for that aspect was slightly bothersome. I do slightly wish there was a dedicated map button, not necessarily a back button, but I would have appreciated a map button. But again, it's intentional design. It's meant to be an artistic choice. It didn't really bother me all that much. In terms of other gameplay elements, I'd say your character walks at a normal speed, but if you drink coffee, your character will be able to sprint for a short period of time, and you recharge that ability just by drinking coffee over and over. However, I will say I did not unlock the coffee mechanic until I was like halfway through the game, so I wouldn't rely on that too much. I do think the character's normal walking speed is still good, though. I don't think it's too slow. And this is kind of the game where you're supposed to take your time anyway. So I think it's almost kind of by design, where the first half of the game you would be taking your time, exploring, gathering all the information, and then the second half of the game is kind of where you're more on a roll, like you have a lot of information, you just need to implement it in certain places. There is a bladder mechanic in the game. If you go into the introspection menu, you can see like your caffeine influence, like your caffeine intake. There is also a bladder mechanic. I took it seriously. I thought that if I didn't pee for every time my bladder meter got filled, that I wouldn't be able to sprint. But then I watched another Let's Play, and it turns out this mechanic doesn't matter. The bladder mechanic is either just for immersion or a joke. You do not need to worry about peeing. You can drink as much coffee as you want, and it will not affect you in any way. Same with the temperature and stress meters in the introspection menu. These are either for immersion or a joke. They have no influence on gameplay whatsoever. They are just there. And it almost kind of adds to the like surreal nature of it, because it is these are like meters you would find in other games, and this game is definitely like referencing and like paying homage to like other styles of games and other types of art and stuff like that. And I find the inclusion of these meters almost charming in a way. It just like fits the style of the game that they're going for. And going off of that, the last thing I want to talk about, and the thing that I want to conclude this review / discussion with, is how this game treats art and like the theme of art. So there are several different types of art referenced in this game. I already mentioned like text adventure and point and click. I referenced like the Resident Evil camera angles and the temperature and survival and temperature and stress meters in the menu. There are this game has a heavy focus on film as an art form. There's mixed media in like There's like mixed interactive media as some of the art on display. There's paintings, music, video games. This game, more than anything, feels like a love letter to art, and in particular, a love letter to media as art. And you can feel the passion from Simogo in every reference, I think. This is one of the main elements that stood out to me the most here was how much this game, and by proxy, how much the developers seem to love all types of art. And in particular, acknowledging that art has evolved to where interactivity has become just as important in some art forms as aesthetics. And I just think that's really cool. Besides the concept of time, like the past, present, and future colliding, these different eras and different types of art is by far the biggest theme present in the game. And it just feels very passionate and sincere in its depiction and discussion of it. And I think that's just like the perfect bow on top of this game to conclude this discussion. This game is this game is weird. This game is not going to be for everyone. This is definitely niche, but I fully believe that this game is a worthwhile experience for those who can appreciate it. This game is aesthetically pleasing. The setting and story are so intriguing and mysterious, and the gameplay, while there are some elements that people might find unintuitive, is clearly designed. It feels intentionally designed and smartly designed, especially when it comes to the puzzles. And you can just tell that a lot of love was put into this game. So with all of that being said, I highly recommend that you check out Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I won't be forgetting this experience anytime soon, and I don't think you'll be forgetting it either. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review / discussion. Please feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to know if you've already played this game, what you think of it, or what your thoughts were on my review. Also, any and all feedback is very much appreciated. This is a very simple, off-the-cuff kind of style, and if you have any feedback for me, I will listen to it. Other than that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, ringing the bell, all that good stuff. There are Discord and Ko-Fi links in the description if you would like to either join the community or support the channel respectively, although there is no pressure to do that second one. And yeah, thanks again everyone so much for watching, and I will see you in whatever you choose to see me in next. Goodbye!